Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Third Hour of Power. This is Grady of This Mormon Life, and this week I am joined by my lovely wife, Christy, of Our Crazy Adventure. How's it going, honey?
It's lovely. It's family night, so everything's going great.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a great family night. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. Yeah. But our lesson this week is Chapter 15 from the Gordon B. Hinckley Manual, The Holy Priesthood. Honey, why don't you start out with the lesson discussion tonight?
I love it. The first section talks about how God has restored the priesthood, the keys of the kingdom. And one of my favorite quotes from this lesson manual is, without it, meaning the priesthood, there could be no church. I'm sorry, there could be a church in name only, lacking authority to administer in the things of God. With it, nothing is impossible in carrying forward the word of the teaching of the kingdom of God. And I love this idea, just the church would be nothing if it didn't have the authority. You know, that the whole, what sets us apart is our authority to act in God's name, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a wonderful social organization.
Great.
It'll have lots of great lessons and teachings.
Yes.
But one of the most important things about the church is the authority to administer the saving ordinances that we need to return to our Father in heaven again. And
the authority, like it talks about, it says with it that anything's possible. I love it, that we can accomplish anything with the priesthood. Hence, the world was created with the priesthood, right?
True. Everything that's done by God is done by His priesthood, by His power and authority. What else stood out to you in the lesson?
Another part that I liked was a quote I heard from President Hinckley a long time ago, and I tried to find it, but I couldn't. But he's teaching and speaking to the young men and also the grown men about the importance of them being their very best in order to represent the priesthood as they carry it. And he says, I lift a warning voice to all, boys and men, to shun sin. Transgression is incompatible with divine authority. I love that you can have both. It says, avoid pornography as you would avoid the plague. And I love that. This was a long time ago, too, before we knew about Fight the New Drug and just the dangers of pornography. But just the idea, if you want to avoid it, like it's the plague, something that we tell our boys. Avoid sexual sin of any degree. Shun dishonesty and deceit. I plead with you, which you just love, President Hinckley, with this pleading. I plead with you to reign in any element of pride or vain ambition. Pride is so hard and the root of so many problems. I ask you to look into yourselves to see that there is no attitude of dominion or compulsion over your wives or your children. And just having that humbleness of heart of holding the priesthood, but not seeing it as a way to reign over other people or feeling superior, but just the idea of, this is Heavenly Father's priesthood. I'm going to make sure that I'm living in a way so I can be worthy of having His presence and be able to act in a way that would represent Him. Yeah,
and that's such a big burden for priesthood holders to make sure that we're doing that. I love, there's a Mormon message for youth that is from Jeffrey R. Holland from one of his conference talks. It just talks about this young man who is just a newly ordained elder, and he coaches football, and all of a sudden lightning strikes and one of the boys goes down, and they're administering to him medically, and he's holding his head, keeping it still, and he gets inspired to administer him spiritually with the priesthood. And Elder Holland just talks about how, if you aren't worthy, that you can't receive the inspiration that you need to bless someone in that situation. And I like that you talk about pride too. It is a humbling thing as a priesthood holder to give a blessing and try to submit to the will of the Lord. There was a time recently where I was asked to give someone a priesthood blessing, and I talked to them, and I thought I knew exactly what they needed. I said, well, logically, this makes sense. Based on everything that I know, I got the perfect answer. I'm going to give it to you via priesthood blessing. That's not how priesthood blessings work. As soon as I put my hands on their heads and I started to say the thing that I thought was supposed to be what was said, I couldn't. It wouldn't come out. And I tried, and I wanted to say it so bad, but the only inspiration that I got was the contrary. And I had to stop, and I had to just think for a second. Is this what the Lord wants? Is this the Lord's will to give this blessing today? And so I did. That's why I went forward with what the Lord wanted. But it took humility, and it took me to be able to say, this isn't about me. It isn't about Grady thinks is best.
It's not Grady's priesthood.
Yeah, it's what the Lord thinks is best.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I really like that fourth section too, talking about that personal accountability to doing what's right. Later on in that section, President Hinckley goes on to give a challenge. He says, "To you men, I issue a challenge. Run from the tightest sleaze that would overcome you. Flee the evils of the world." I think about Joseph when he was confronted by Potiphar's wife and how he fled out of her presence. He didn't casually walk out and say, maybe a little bit. He ran away. And I think it's the same thing with us. We need to run away for those temptations. He goes on to say, be loyal to your better self. Be loyal to the best that is in you. Be faithful and true to the covenants that are associated with the priesthood of God. Which I love that change of just the proactive now. It's not enough to simply not be bad. We need to fill our lives with good things. We need to be loyal and do the things we've been asked to do so that we can be in the mindset where the Spirit dwells with us. And that takes a proactive approach. For those of you who are watching live, I'd love to see what you guys do to make sure that you're always ready to feel the Spirit and be ready to give a priesthood blessing on a moment's notice.
I love how it talks about your better self. As a mother, it's really interesting and been amazing to watch our son recently been ordained, and sometimes I used to kind of wonder, I wonder why Heavenly Father gives the priesthood to 12-year-old boys, right? It sounds kind of a little weird sometimes. I see they do good stuff. I mean, nothing against them, but I just think, man, but I've seen so much growth in my son. I've seen opportunities to serve and put others first, as he has to get up earlier than his brothers and his sister and go collect fast offerings and get ready for church, which, by the way, he hates getting for church. I mean, wearing a tie and a shirt is like the worst thing ever. Right?
Finding his shoes.
Oh, so hard, right? These sacrifices he's making as I see him fulfilling his priesthood responsibilities and trying his best to pass the sacrament, I see him becoming more like our Savior. And I'm like, I get it. I get it why he gives priesthood to men, but not even just to men, but to boys, to young boys. So they can become and they can learn how to lead. And it's just really humbling and amazing. I've really enjoyed watching him as he's received the priesthood. Yeah.
In fact, the last section goes on to talk about some of that support that is there for priesthood holders in the form of a quorum. Section 5 talks about how a priesthood quorum can be an anchor of strength for its members. And I love this because I'm a big proponent of the priesthood quorum being a brotherhood. And President Hinckley says the same thing. He says, I am confident that the Lord intended that the priesthood quorum should be far more than a class in theology on Sunday mornings. Of course, the building of spirituality and the strengthening of testimony through effective gospel teaching, which is why we do this podcast, is an important priesthood responsibility. But this is only a segment of the quorum function. Each quorum must be a working brotherhood for every member and for its purpose to be realized. And I love because he even talks about then this really parallels with the Relief Society. Mm-hmm. That's also the same mission with the women. It's to go out and to serve, to be a society of women who go out and serve. I really enjoyed. We went to the Church History Museum we went to Utah a few weeks back. And they've got this presentation all about the Relief Society. And they got this little video just talking about these women coming together and meeting and talking about how to serve and how it was really a big sacrifice for them. And also the way that they gave selfless service to bless individuals, not just giving to everything, but seeing an actual sister in need and giving to her what she needed. It was really touching and really moving.
And, as the Relief Society is patterned after the priesthood, it's the same thing that our sisterhood that we have in there. I love meeting with my sisters. I'm actually in primary, and so I don't meet with them every Sunday. But when we get together, there's strength and there's power as we have that priesthood power, as we keep our covenants, as we try to support the priesthood, as we fulfill our callings that we've been set apart by the priesthood, that we have an opportunity to strengthen each other and help us come unto Christ. So it's an awesome counsel for both organizations.
Yeah, and there's priesthood power. I love Elder Oaks talked about how, the Relief Society operates under priesthood power. They don't have authority, but they have that power given to them to serve in the ways that they do. And I thought that was really an important distinction for us to realize that there's power in all members of the church who are faithfully serving in their responsibilities.
And as we keep our covenants, the covenants we made through the priesthood, we're able to receive power. That's what I'm teaching my primary kids, that you, boys or girls, have that priesthood power as we keep our covenants. And that's a big part of the priesthood is keeping covenants and preparing for the Savior to come.
Yeah. Well, honey, how are things going on the blog? What do you have going on?
They're going great. So tonight's family night, which was great. We just had some yummy treats, but we had a family night on hate speech. With school starting, I want to make sure that we went over with our children the importance of using kind words, and that if they heard anything unkind, that they can know how to step up to it and stand up for others. So it's a great, I think, we use a lot of examples in literature and movies to kind of help children understand hate speech without going over any of the terrible words they haven't been exposed to yet, if we weren't listening off things. But
we didn't want to give them any ideas.
No, but just the idea of teaching them what the idea of hate speech means and how we can stop it and what the Savior would do if he heard that. I thought some great discussions, and the kids shared a lot of great insights. And
I love that they identified, they're like, in Star Wars Clone Wars that happens. So if you want to know more about that, check out the blog post on her site. The link is in the show notes that will accompany this episode. So head over to this-foreman-life for the show notes. Also there, you'll find a link to an article that I wrote about father's blessings, particularly when it comes to back to school. Our kids are in Arizona, so they start school crazy early. But if your kids haven't started school yet, it's a great resource. If you've got a priesthood holder in the home, I would highly encourage them to give priesthood blessings to your children before they start school. If you don't, hopefully you have a loving home teacher that can help you with that.
Read the blog post and seek out someone to know the importance of doing that.
Yeah.
Help bless your kids and get them prepared. Our kids, I know they felt so much better after they received their blessings.
Yeah. So we thank you guys for joining us. We hope that this lesson has helped you, that it has nourished and strengthened your spirit. And we are really excited to be able to share these things with you. And we bid you all a fond adieu. All right, let's do our pose where we pause together. All right, so you guys that are watching live, you get a couple of extra moments of commentary. So we've changed up, or I guess we haven't, but Be Live changed up the way that we share the podcast, where in order for us to stay on the free version, we only have 20 minutes for an episode, which is good because sometimes
I'm a fast talker.
Yeah, and I get long-winded, so it helps balance each other out. But we're going to go ahead and switch over to another episode in about 15 minutes. So if you guys want to join us for that episode, there's a link down in the comments. So click there, join us, and in that episode, we're going to be talking about the power of the Book of Mormon. So before we do that, is there any questions you guys have about this episode that you'd love to ask us in our final minutes that we have? You know, we love the live component of this where we can talk with you guys.
In a classroom setting.
Yeah. So especially if you're like us, we don't actually go to third-hour lessons. I serve with the young men in the Deacons Quorum, and Christy serves in the primary. So we never get to have these lessons. So if there's any questions that you guys have, whether you're a teacher and you're trying to have some ideas, or you want to share where's going to work for you or you hope will work for you, or if you just have ideas in general of how do I get more out of the priesthood, how can I get more blessings out of the priesthood. But if not, we'll go ahead and end. We'll drink our water cups and then join us over in 15 minutes over on the other link in the comments below, and we'll talk about the power of the Book of Mormon. All right. Thanks, guys.
Will the questions come up if they had questions?